Hey, so as you may know, last week, just this last Thursday, we released the first episode of Equilibrium onto Steam Early Access, and that was a really busy week leading up to the release, and it's been busy since then, sort of juggling all of the different elements that got introduced by the release. Um, I think somewhere in the back of my mind, I had kind of foolishly allowed myself to believe that even this initial release would result in, a feeling of completion or relaxation and relief. But that's not the case at all. It feels very much like if you're climbing a mountain and you reach what you think is the top, and then you realize that there's a much taller peak out there in the fog. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We've been gathering ourselves to sort of figure out what to, just gather our thoughts and collect ourselves to push forward onto the next step. But the response has been good so far. We've got, I think I showed some of these curator reviews already, but we have, I think, 14 out of 15 curator responses have been positive. Some in particular were really nice to read. There were people that really loved it. There was at least one so far, Indie Gems, who did not recommend it, and we'll get into his reasoning there. It's actually pretty reasonable feedback, and this guy's been fine to talk to about it. I appreciate that because it always is hard to receive criticism, but I think that all of the points that he brings up are legitimate and they can all be addressed, which is helpful. Um, if it was something that I didn't have control over, that would be a different story. But luckily, criticism in this case just kind of gives us a clear path forward. So that's good. And we still have plenty of good reviews to offset that sting, Indie Gems. But no, it's good. Um, so yeah, I've been gathering feedback from them, and then also some player feedback. Mostly has been positive. We don't have a lot of players yet. Mostly people are just adding it to their wish list. So, and one of the complaints that Indie Gems had was that the current price is pretty steep for what we're asking, or for what we're offering. It is just the first episode, and even though we're selling it based on the projected value of all this content we're going to add later, that is a little weird for people. I mean, we're treating it kind of like a crowdfunding opportunity where if people want to buy into it early, they can, and the earlier you buy in, the more directly you'll be involved in the conversation, shaping the direction forward. So if you buy in and you talk to us, we will respond to your feedback, and we will very likely change the game based on your feedback. But not everyone's going to be into that. A lot of people are just going to wait for the full release, and I think that's fine. And responses like the one from Indie Gems, I think, really just help people make informed decisions about whether they should buy it at this point. I did have an initial sort of knee-jerk reaction of like, oh, maybe we should lower the price right away and try and scoop some of these people up that are in the wish list, because it is nice to have an initial base of players to work from or work with, gathering feedback. But I think, but Steam doesn't allow you to make changes to the game's price for the first 2 months. So we're just gonna let it sit where it is right now. I'm looking at other options. Like I might put it out in and just do one run in a bundle to try and get a lump of players to work with out the gate. But we'll see. Definitely learning a lot throughout this. Okay, so this is Indie Gem's response. I said I would go into that a little better here. It might be funny to focus on the negative here, but really these devlogs are not supposed to be promotional material for the game. This is just just a candid look at what this process is like. So basically, he thought that it had a lot of interesting ideas and potential, but that it's in too early a state to ask for what the price that we're asking for. So he said that it took him about an hour to get through, which is actually exactly what we expected. I think hopefully I made that clear to people in the announcement leading up to the release. But even this first episode is going to get expanded over time. So basically his, said positives: interesting and fairly unique mechanics, oddities of graphics, vibrant environment. Uh, you know, basically thought it looked pretty cool and played pretty well, but it's way too short, and there are areas where the visual there's a lack of visual clarity because of the content in the foreground and midground and background, and it's not exactly clear where things are at sometimes. So a lot of that is stuff that we now want to address um, in this first auxiliary release. So, like I said in the last video, we're going to alternate between episodic releases that advance the narrative and auxiliary releases, which are sort of fleshing out the content that's already there, either by adding stuff to expand it, or in this case, we might actually do some a little overhaul of the graphics. Although we do plan on more fully polishing all of the visuals for the game in the final year of development. So some of this might wait until then, but if it's causing people problems while they play the game, then we'll definitely try to address it quicker. And then at the time that he played it, it didn't initially have leaderboards, so the points seemed kind of pointless. But now there are leaderboards, and hopefully that somewhat addresses it. And then we're also going to integrate those points into the grotto system that I've posted about before in these devlogs. So that should be further addressed in this first auxiliary release by giving you something to do with all those points that you're collecting. So, this is probably actually, even though this is a thumbs down, this may be the most useful review that I've received. There are definitely ones that were, flattering and made me super happy to read, and I'm really glad that other people have had a lot of fun playing the game. But the nice thing about a negative review is it gives you stuff to work with to make the game better. So, hopefully it doesn't prevent too many people from buying into this game over time. I don't think it will. I think eventually, if I address all of this, I expect that he'll be reasonable enough to flip this. But it's actually not that bad a thing. So that took me a little while to realize, but I think that's just part of this process of releasing your stuff and being open to criticism. And then I guess I wanted to show before I end this, just show how you go about accessing the leaderboards, because that is something that will add value for people. If you do outperform your previous score, it prompts you to push it to the leaderboard, and then you can see that leaderboard from the community hub. So basically your score, eventually we'll make this more transparent too, but your score is determined by how many of these plants you touch, these purple seeds, and then also the speed that you play through the level at, and how many times you die. So I'm trying to 100% the seed content, because you get a bonus if you get 100% of the seeds. You also get a bonus if you don't die at all, and you get a bonus I think if your time's under a certain threshold, at least. You did for a while. I can't remember if that's in the current build or not, but it'll probably be back. I think the issue there is that I want the time, the threshold for the time bonus to be variable based on how long it takes to play through these different levels. So it might depend on getting some player data to determine what like what par time is for a given level. Because these levels are obviously different lengths and have different, you can't have the same time number for a. Oh, I died! Look at that! I'm gonna fail. Okay. Okay, that's all right. That's embarrassing. Dying at my own game. Also, I hope that most players will take time to play through this game and appreciate the narrative more than I'm doing right now. The arcadey elements are, in a perfect world, I'm hoping that players will really only get into that once they've completed the game. So someday it might make sense to sort of separate that content. Oh, it is a new high score. Look at that. Okay, so push to leaderboard. And so now that I've done that, if I go to the Steam community page for Equilibrium and go to view stats and global leaderboards, it should have, yeah. So this is the bycatch score, and it has that high score that I just reached. Man, I must not have. Well, it doesn't matter anyway. Anyway, there's a scoreboard for each level, and you know, there aren't very many people pushing their scores to these boards yet. So I hope people start doing that, and I hope someone dethrones me ASAP. Anyway, that's all for this week. That was probably a pretty long video, but it was a crazy week. So glad to have the game out the door, and looking forward to getting the auxiliary release 1 out the door soon. Bye.